Hi, Deb here, and I'm going to speak about one of my favorite movies and the dolls that were made to represent the characters. Before I begin, the movie is Gone with the Wind, and I want to acknowledge that Gone with the Wind did not directly address the horrors of slavery. It did not adequately represent the enslaved people's lives. And I acknowledge that. If you're looking to Gone with the Wind to learn about the Civil War, look somewhere else. Because, in fact, you shouldn't look to Hollywood for history anyway, because their job is to tell stories. And if reality gets in the way of the story they want to tell, they're going to just ignore that. So, having said that, having acknowledged that this is not a historically worthwhile piece, it is a worthwhile part of Hollywood history. The making of Gone with the Wind would make a movie on its own. But, okay, having said that, let's move on to the dolls. And first doll, of course, is Scarlett herself, Scarlett O'Hara. This book is a fictional account. Well, I shouldn't say book because I've never read the book. The movie is a fictional account of Scarlett O'Hara and her life before, during, and after the Civil War. So, and if you haven't seen the movie, which I'm surprised a lot of people haven't, but probably because of what I stated before, but have you not seen the movie, I'm not going to tell you about this dress and what it signifies, but it's a pivotal part of the story. And this is made in the likeness of Vivien Leigh, who played Scarlett. The Search for Scarlett, again, that's a movie all in itself. Apparently, Warner Brothers had the rights to the movie first, and Bette Davis was set to play Scarlett, and I'm sure she would have made the part her own. She was an amazing actress. But they came to her and said, well, MGM won't let us have Clark Gable to play Rat. And she said, well, then I'm not playing Scarlett because he is Rat. And Warner Brothers they transaction with Selznick Studios, and so it was on them to make the movie. And they worked with MGM, I forget how that works, but they had to find the right Scarlett because people had read this book and they had all these characters in their mind. So all the actresses in Hollywood wanted to play the part, and there's screen tests of all these ladies, great actresses, but Scarlett just wasn't in them. So the story goes that they had to start filming anyway because they were behind schedule and they couldn't wait. So they were filming the burning of Atlanta. And the story goes that Laurence Olivier brought his girlfriend, Vivien Leigh, to the set to meet the director. The director turned and saw the fire of the burning of Atlanta in her eyes and knew he had found his Scarlett. And she did a magnificent job. Nowadays, you can't picture anyone else as Scarlett. Again, controversy with that because she was British. And they thought, well, this is a story of a Southern belle. Why would you get a British woman? Well, you got a British woman because the British woman did the job. And she won an Oscar for it. And so this dress figures prominently in the story. It was even parodied on the Carol Burnett show. I have a doll of that too, but I'm not going to show it right now. Amazing how much the costumes played a role in the movie. I never thought of that until I started to do this video. This was given to me by a friend, and most of these gifts were given to me by my brother, but I probably bought some, but I'm not sure. Okay, here's another of Scarlett's costumes. Look at that face. And this is where the attempt is being made to present her as a proper lady to society. again, I'm not going to tell you what prompted that because I don't want to ruin the movie if you do decide to give it a try. This doll, she even has a little necklace there. It's just beautiful. But if you're going to make a doll like Scarlett O'Hara, Vivian Leigh, you better be making a beautiful doll, because she sure was. And this, again, this costume features prominently in the story of Scarlett. Not one of her better moments, but pretty much in Scarlett's case, pretty much everything that happened to her was her own fault. But all these dolls were made in 1989 to mark the 50th anniversary of the film. That's why I wanted to do the video before 2019 ends, because it's the 80th anniversary. Okay, the main reason I love Gone with the Wind is Clark Gable. This is where I first fell in love with Clark Gable. I was at a big movie palace, never had seen Gone with the Wind, and there's a scene where he's introduced and the camera goes down this spiral staircase and he's standing at the bottom looking like nobody I'd ever seen before. And I never looked back. I love Clark Gable. I'm going to do a special show just on him in February for his birthday, because I have a lot more Clark Gable dolls. This is one of Rhett's costumes. And look at that face. How could you not love that face? They made several Scarlett and Rhett's. This suit is kind of turned, and I'm not sure about washing it, if I'll ruin it or not. I mean, the dolls are, 30 years old, so I don't know. There he is. Clark Gable did not want to play Rhett because the book had been out, it was popular, people had in their minds who Rhett Butler was. And he said, what if I let them down? He wasn't willing to do that, but back then the studio tells you to do it, you do it. So he compromised by not doing an accent. He had done an accent in a movie, one of the few flops he had, and he didn't want to go there again. Didn't matter, because once Clark Gable came on the film as Rhett Butler, you believed it. You believed the character. He had every nuance of this character who needs an accent. And again, with Vivian Leigh, she had a British accent, but she tempered it to be more like a Southern lady. There's a great story on YouTube about Clark Gable. It was in 1939, remember, and on the set, they had separate facilities for who they called African Americans colored people then, and they had separate facilities for colored and white. And one of the young men who was playing an enslaved person, he was furious, and rightly so. So he was trying to make a point. This is wrong. You can't keep doing this. And nobody would listen to him. And the older African-American gentleman said, well, that's just the way it is. Let it go. Well, he wouldn't let it go. And he went to Clark Gable, the king of Hollywood, the biggest star. He said, well, I'm going to tell him about it. And everybody said, well, he won't even talk to you. Come on. Well, he did talk to him. This gentleman went to the trailer of Clark Gable and said, hey, I need you to come with me. And he did, which surprised everybody. And he took him to the facilities marked white and colored. And he said Mr. Gable just stood there and looked and was trying to register what it was. He's from the North. He didn't know that much. And when it dawned on him what that meant, he thought, no, we're not having that. And he started making phone calls. And this guy tells a story that he made several phone calls and he was getting more agitated each time. And he finally said, he got in to the producer and said, look, those signs come down or you don't have a Rhett Butler. The signs came down. So it makes me that much more proud to be a Clark Gable fan, that he would take a stand because he wasn't a real political guy. He wasn't, but right is right. And he took a stand, and I'm proud of him. It's a great story. It's on YouTube, but I caution you, there is a swear word. And, you know, I don't swear. I don't like swear words, but there you are. And there he is. Another pivotal character is Hattie McDaniel's Mammy. And those of us in the 21st century are just offended by the concept of a mammy but she was playing the role she was assigned. She had a lot of roles like that, and apparently she was criticized quite a bit for taking those roles and by younger generations, and she finally said, stop it. The day you have to do your own hair and makeup and have a separate dressing room because they don't know how to do fashion and makeup for people like you. When that happens to you, you come and tell me how wrong I was. So she paid her dues, and she broke the color barrier in the Oscars because she's the first African American to win an Oscar. And that should be her legacy. Her own parents were enslaved people. Her father fought in the Civil War. She was born in 1895. And she didn't live to see the civil rights movement really take hold. But she did her part, and I think she should be admired, not criticized. There is a one-woman play. I haven't seen it, but where this woman plays Hattie McDaniel to tell her story. And until I was unboxing this doll, I did not realize she had her red petticoat on. Again, that's part of the story. I'm not going to tell you the significance of the red petticoat. But Mammy's character, she was smarter than everybody else around her. She saw right through Scarlett and called her on it. So I think it's beautiful that they included her in the dolls, even though first glance you might be appalled at the imagery. But this is the character she played, and she played her well enough to get an Oscar. So I admire this woman greatly. Okay, and the only other enslaved character that they made a doll of was Prissy, played by Butterfly McQueen. I don't think this looks that much like her, but at least she's represented. And the beautiful thing, when I opened the box for this doll, it was from eBay, somebody had tucked lovingly Butterfly McQueen's obituary in it. So that tells me whoever had this doll before me respected the woman and cared enough to preserve her part of history. She even has, I haven't taken the plastic off these shoes. Okay, next is Ashley Wilkes, played by, oh my gosh, I'm totally drawing a blank, Leslie Howard. Again, a British man. And again, he was such an embodiment of the character he played, such a fine actor, that you didn't think about his slight British accent that he had. He just sounded like a proper, educated English or Southern gentleman. And that's his uniform. Again, it's amazing how much the fashion actually mattered in this movie. But this sash was part of the story too. I think that's a nice likeness. He was a hero himself in World War II for the British Army. I think he was in the Army. It might have been the Air Force. And then, of course, if you have Ashley, you have to have Melanie. And played by Olivia de Havilland. I don't think this looks that much like Olivia de Havilland, but seems inconsistent. Some of these dolls are spot on, and some of them, I don't know, just to me it doesn't look like her, but still, she's part of the story. Olivia de Havilland, as far as I know, is the only surviving member of the movie. Unless the lady who played Bonnie Blue, she's probably still around. And speaking of Bonnie Blue, here's Bonnie Blue. Let's see, what's her name? I looked her name up because I didn't know it. No, I didn't. This is Bonnie Blue. Sweet part of the story, which again I will not elaborate. And then Scarlett's parents. This is Mrs. O'Hara. She had to put up with a lot having Scarlett as her daughter and keeping her other daughters at bay because they didn't really get along with Scarlett. Oh, that gown is beautiful. Don't you think? Let's see, who played Mrs. O'Hara? I know I looked that up. I don't know. You can look it up. She's a famous actress. I'm totally drawing a blank. Right. And then Mr. O'Hara was played by Thomas Mitchell. This is a name I know because in the 30s and 40s he was one of the most busy character actors, and boy, he could play anything. Anything at all. Even during the course of Gone with the Wind, he goes from one type of person to another type of person, and he was flawless. He was one of the best actors ever. Oh, look at these stands. These dolls came with these kind of stands. I like them because they're not around the waist. So, Thomas Mitchell, especially the MGM movies he was in. I wonder how many movies he did, because he could just play anything. He was wonderful. Yeah, let's see. I've got two more characters to share with you. Is Aunt Pitty-Pat. And I know the hair's wild, but her hair, she wore her hair in very inappropriate curls for an older lady. But, let's see, Ona Munson, or Anna Munson, O-N-A Munson is who played her. She was one of your more outlandish characters in the film. But she added to the story. And my last character to share with you is Belle Watling, Rhett's friend. Let's see, who played her? Laura Hope? No, Laura Hope Cruz was Aunt Pitty-Pat. Belle Watling was the Ona Munson. Apologies. And A Lady in Red. That gives you a little bit of hint of who she was and what she played. But again, so much depth of character this actress had playing this character who could have been simply someone moving the story along, but instead she really added to the story. This particular doll, my brother bought her for me, and all these dolls were made by World Doll in 1989. And I was telling my brother, he apparently had bought it for me. He was waiting to give it to me. And I just mentioned that, oh, this is World Doll Day. So next thing I know, I have this package given to me, and since she was made by World Doll, he gave her to me on World Doll Day. And that's the beauty of doll collecting, the memories that are connected with all of these dolls. And so I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope, if you haven't seen Gone with the Wind, if you watch it, keep in mind it's not an accurate portrayal of the heartache of that time. It's a fictional story of this woman. And it's an epic. So, whether you watch the movie or not, I'm sorry the video is so long. I try not to do that, but I want to get all the dolls in. And I wanted to do it while it's still 2019. So I hope you liked the video. I hope you subscribe and comment while we can. I would appreciate that. And I'll talk to you later. Toodles!